to us from Greece. She's going to tell us how she got from Australia all the way to the beautiful country of Greece. Welcome, Mary. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So let's start from the very beginning. You're from Perth. What was it like for you growing up there?
So Perth, extremely far away from everywhere else in the world, as I was telling you when we first spoke. So it's the most remote city in the world, funnily enough. Not many people know that. Major city. So to go anywhere to the next city is about 2.5 to 2 hours 45 on plane. Yep, so it's a small town on the west coast of Australia, so it's a couple of million people, but quite small comparatively. Land mass is very big compared, so you can basically fit, if I give you a comparison, you can fit the size of a whole of Greece, can fit into one state in Australia, Victoria. So that's how big Australia actually is, funnily enough, but the desert is huge. So a lot of people just spread out, really, to be fair, whereas here I'm in a major city with a lot of people in one little location. So yeah, Perth was nice. Perth was nice childhood, clean, green, clean, safe. I feel sometimes like it was a little bubble because when I experienced the outside world visually through media and things, I didn't really know that I had it so good in Perth, I suppose. Like I sort of would, when I would watch movies growing up thinking, oh, is it really like that out there? And I'm thinking, is it a big, scary world? And yeah, unfortunately it is at times. So
yeah, it can be.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a safe haven, really, to be honest, to grow up there. I went to a nice school and I had good friends and had a good family. But something I feel maybe it's they say a lot of Australians do travel because we're so far out from the rest of the world. So it's like this yearning to see the unknown. And that's probably where it started, being so far away and seeing everything, like I was saying, on the media and wanting to explore that myself. So it was good for childhood, but then getting into teenage years, going to adolescence and sort of into my formative years, something was missing, I suppose. And that's why I didn't immediately go to Greece. I had a citizenship from Greece at a young age because my father's Greek. So I always had that tie to Europe, and I had my mother's Polish, so I had that sort of ties to European, a little bit of a European upbringing. Obviously, there's a lot of Greeks in Australia. I mean, Melbourne has one of the biggest populations of Greeks outside of Greece. Don't know if you know that yet. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of I had a lot of influence growing up. We had a lot of we had things called name days in Perth, which is like a birthday, but they call it a name day. So everyone celebrates that day on their particular date. Like mine is in August, my name day on the 15th, and that's my name. And also Paniota is another name that they have. So Maria and Paniota is the name that they celebrate, and it's just like a saint day, and everyone's very festive. Yeah, it's an Orthodox thing. So that was kind of instilled growing up, and the Greek food definitely growing up in Perth. There was a lot of restaurants up and coming, and I used to go to family outings, and so yeah, I did have the influence of that. But yeah, nice upbringing, but very Australianized, like if we say multicultural upbringing for sure.
That's so crazy that I didn't realize that there was like such a large community of Greeks in Australia.
In Australia,
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
The Australian outback wasn't adventurous enough for you? You needed to see the world?
I know, funnily enough, no, I'm not a camper. I'm a glamper maybe, but not a camper.
Same.
Yeah, no.
Same.
Unfortunately, no.
I grew up camping and I hated it, so no, thank you. No, thank you. Especially in the Australian outback.
Well, the beach is beautiful. Another thing is, the beaches, to be fair, you can't. We're on the Indian Ocean side in WA, so the western coast is Indian Ocean. So we're basically the next up is Bali and Philippines, and so we're on the Indian side. So it's beautiful water. Every time I visit, I just take it in. I mean, the water here is spectacular, but it's just different. Yeah.
I've never been to Australia. Let me preface this with that. But my son is obsessed with octopuses. And we know like the blue ring octopus lives in like the coastal waters of like Australia. And so we see all these pictures and it's incredible. I mean, the reef obviously is just stunning. And
it's
to have that
East
literally
Coast,
in your backyard. Yeah. But like
Queensland, yeah, Queensland's amazing. And there's a big buzz at the moment, obviously, with a lot of media, people coming from like the state, actors coming from there to the States.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's hot on the press at the moment. Everyone being Aussie is kind of the trendy thing at the moment.
A bad thing, right?
So, yeah, it's cool. Definitely.
Now, how does a woman from Perth, now you said you had Greek roots, but how did you actually end up back in maybe your motherland or your grandmother land, you know?
Yeah, no, that's true. So I visited first just after high school. I visited for the first time. And I suppose being so far away, it was harder for me to travel there when I was younger, during schooling. And that was an eye-opener in itself, because Greece is, like I was saying, that was my first major trip outside of Asia. So I'd done Asia before I'd done Greece. And Asia is relatively, obviously very different, but it was a lot closer, and it was what I was expecting, you know, what you see. I went to Kuala Lumpur. It was my first of international trip. Malaysia, which I still really love, actually. Malaysia is not somewhere that a lot of people go, I feel, anymore. I never see it on the map of anywhere, but yeah, it's an amazing city. I love it there. So I like the food, and I grew up like very multicultural, experiencing a lot of Asian food. So I went there for the first time, and that was great in itself to do that. But then Europe is a totally different ball game. So coming to Greece, I was really, I suppose, expecting like what they show on the movies at the Mamma Mia and the blue domes. Parts, yes, but far from it, from where I stay, because we stayed in the village, my father's village. So that was very eye-opening. No one speaks English, and, you know, like the heat, I'm used to being in the heat in Australia, but this was just a different heat. I never experienced that dry Mediterranean heat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the noise of it all, like just the noise, just different sounds of just the mornings. I don't know if you're in Spain, so you'll understand the noises of just everything that goes on in the morning. The guy on the megaphone in the mornings calling out for the fruit guy. You've got people just buzzing around. You've got people having their coffees. It's just mayhem. You know, it's different. The tractor starting up. You've got the tractor starting up at 6 a.m. Like, whereas Perth, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that was vacation mode. That wasn't even moving there. That was like vacation mode. And then people screaming as Southern Mediterraneans do. You've got people screaming, and I'm thinking they're arguing, but they're not arguing. It's just conversation. Very crazy. And this was this was sort of early 2000s, so pre people being on their phone. And so everyone gathered together at the square. There was no like texting of people saying, come and meet me. It was just every person from the village came down and had their morning coffee at that particular one venue that everyone went to, you know, on a Saturday morning. So yeah, it was an experience. And then we traveled around a bit, and that was just before, like I said, it was after I finished high school, so I was free to kind of go for as long as I wanted. And when I came back, I really did, that's probably when it hit me, and I thought, really, what do I want to do? Do I want to be in a corporate job in Australia, or, you know? And I did try that route. So shortly after we came back, my father got a job in Dubai, and him and mum moved over. So they were there for 15 years all up. And we thought it was going to be just a few-year contract, because he's an architect, and he was in like the engineering field and construction. So we thought at that time Dubai was really booming in the early 2000s, and obviously the construction was happening, and they got him for a contract, and he went there. And so we thought it was going to be a few years, and it was 15 years later. So at that time I thought, well, I wasn't ready to go to Dubai at that time. It was a bit of a move for me. I was only early 20s, and it wasn't somewhere I really wanted to go. So I moved interstate to Melbourne, and I started a corporate job there. And it just wasn't for me. I mean, it's still now not for me, really. I'm not a 9-to-5er, unfortunately. I'd love to be. I yearn to be a 9-to-5er sometimes, but I just can't do it. Yeah, just can't do it. So that got me my first buzz of moving away alone from my family, early 20s. And then I actually didn't move to Greece till a lot longer. I had lived in a various amount of places before I even came here, like long term. Well, I moved to Canada for my working visa. So that was my first experience working out of Australia. So I did my working visa and went to Banff and did the mountains, the ski field, and did the summers there. Yeah, they're cool.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful there. Then went to the east coast to Toronto and stayed there as well. And I loved it there. The freezing cold, I couldn't handle the cold though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. No, thank you, cold.
Yeah, I wanted to stay long term. Actually, I would have stayed in Canada longer, but my visa is restrictions. Obviously, being within the Commonwealth countries, it was easy to take my visa. But keeping the visa is harder. You have to get sponsorship. And at that time as well, it was a lot harder. It wasn't like digital nomad visa they have now, or here it's a lot more you can work online. There you couldn't work remotely. So I was kind of forced to come back to Oz at that time. And then I came back and my parents were still not there. My family was all scattered around the country. I had a few people in various places. So didn't have everyone back in Perth. I had a few people in Sydney. And so I thought, what am I going to do? And then at the time I thought, well, maybe I'll try Dubai. And so I applied for become a flight attendant. And I moved to Abu Dhabi, actually, funnily enough.
Wow.
Yep. So I did that. So did that for a few years, and I look back at it fondly. It's funny. At the time it was hard, really, really hard work. Really, really hard work. Funnily, you don't think that industry will be so hard work because I suppose the glamour of it. It looks on the outside like everyone's very groomed and everyone's jet setting everywhere, and it's very glamorous job, but it's really, really hard work mentally. It's really quite lonely, and so I found like I didn't really feel like I fit in anywhere. Being away as well wasn't really you know what I mean, by myself wasn't really what I wanted either. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do, I suppose. And so I did eventually move back to Melbourne for some time before I moved to Greece because I wanted to establish myself in what I thought might be some roots, I suppose. And so that time in my life was amazing, but it didn't last long, as it were. It couldn't keep me from traveling, unfortunately, long term. So I tried, but everything that went on with COVID as well really shifted that. So
yeah, I get that.
That's really how I ended up back in Greece, to be fair, because of due to COVID. I think if I had COVID, as it were, for a lot of people, if COVID hadn't have happened, paths, diverged to different things, and this led me here. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that what you said about finding roots. I was just having this conversation with my dad about roots, and I think it's such an interesting concept. Culturally, historically, many of us are hunter-gatherers, right? Like we're nomadic by nature, like by human nature. Like settling down and having communities is a very new and novice thing. It's just a few hundred years old for all intents and purposes. And it's like, what does that word roots mean? Like, I remember as a kid too, like, I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, like Amish farms, cows, like dirt, gravel roads, like, and I just remember thinking one day, like driving in the car, like, there's got to be more than this. There's got to be more than this. Not that it's not beautiful in its own right, but you think about like roots and being tethered to something, like you can always go back to like home. I think home is such an interesting concept because it's evolved so much through like our human existence of what home means, what roots are, like, indigenous populations and like, Celtic nomadic clans would travel throughout the land, use what they needed, and then move on. And it's almost like we're kind of like circling back to that, like all these years later, like, okay, this doesn't work for us. We have to go here now. Oh, that doesn't work for us. We have to go there now. I mean, there's a lot of technology involved, way more than they had. But I like that you're saying like, finding some roots, but even when you came back to Melbourne to find roots, you found that maybe they weren't there anymore. The branches had extended elsewhere. I don't know. It's just something that's been in my mind lately that resonated.
Yeah. Yeah. We have the opportunity now to do that, don't we? Get up and go, whereas our ancestors couldn't do that, unfortunately. So we're very blessed. We're very blessed. We forget that people would leave their home countries and never go back again, back 20, 40 years ago.
Yes. I'm actually writing this thing. My great-grandmother was first-generation Italian-American. My great-great-grandparents came over in 1907 from Italy to the United States. And I just think about what prompted them to leave like 100 years ago to go to the U.S. And I think I'm not 100% on this, but I'm the first generation, 4 generations later, that went back to Italy, to the village where my great-great-grandparents were from. And you wonder, like, that was like such a novel thing at the time to get on a steamship and sail across the Mediterranean, like through the Mediterranean, across the Atlantic, and what was going through their heads. And no one's been back because that's not cheap, you know, even as cheap as travel's gotten. Like, it's an experience.
Definitely.
You keep saying all these things that have been in my brain. Oh my gosh. Anyway, now you're living in Europe. So what do you appreciate about this European Greek lifestyle that's, you know, different, maybe better than what you had in Australia?
Funny, yeah. I was going to say the weather is the first thing, but I'm thinking now I've talked to you about Perth. The weather there is spectacular, so I can't really say the weather because the West Coast is different to the East Coast. It's funny. It's like Melbourne is cold and dreary all the time. It's not like a cold. It's not a Canada cold, fair, but it's really 4 seasons. Like it's raining, it's stormy, and then that I couldn't handle. And just the same country, but just that. The comparative differences, I suppose I liken it to California and New York is completely different, right? It's the same thing. Yeah. It's just the weather we couldn't handle it anymore, the weather. So that's one big thing. 9 months of the year here, it's warm. I didn't realize it does get cold, but to be fair, other places in Europe comparative to here is ridiculously cold. So I'm very blessed. Like today is sort of 16 and sunny, and that's February, 16 Celsius. So yeah, the weather, one thing. To be fair, cost of living, yes, has gone up generally, globally. But when I went back to Melbourne in November, I was there in Australia in November, really see, I mean, if you look at the wages comparative, no, it's still costly in Europe, essentially what they earn. But if you're looking from a global perspective of actual cost of living, I feel like here you can utilize things like, activities, food, things like that, like enjoyment factor compared to Australia is astronomically more expensive. So to go out for a dinner and go to concerts in Australia is just ridiculous. Like I went to a concert here, international artist, and it costs you like 60 euro. You're going to be paying like, 250 Australian dollars to go see someone. So that I feel is definitely still retainable. Like here is much, much better. Weather, enjoyment of life, and also proximity to Europe, really, to be fair. That's like my one thing I still freak out, like get on a plane and go to anywhere is nothing. Just go to Spain, go to Italy, that's just not, but it's not doable in Australia, just not doable. So that's really the three things essentially that you look for. You look for your cost. You look for your enjoyment of, the weather really dictates your enjoyment in life, the cost of everything, what you can do, and also your accessibility to everything. And here has great accessibility, for sure. And the public network for trains and transport and metro underground is amazing compared to anywhere in Australia, for sure. So it's a huge difference. Yeah.
I understand that because the infrastructure for the U.S. when it comes to trains, and you have to be in a specific city, and they're all different, and half the time they're not safe. So that's never fun.
Yeah.
Now you do have 2 kids. So what do you hope your children are gaining from this experience of a life in Greece?
Wow, I'm seeing it already. It's funny. It's like I'm not hoping, I'm seeing it. It's crazy. I mean, like, they're already bilingual, which is just nuts to me, like at such a young age. I mean, they already picked it up. They're already speaking to their friends in fluent Greek and at school, and they go to public Greek school, so I don't have them in any international school at this time. So they're fully Greek, so they've just gone straight in. I've thrown them straight in the deep end.
Love it.
So, for me, that's really challenging, I have to admit. If I put it back on me, I'm finding that's like a bit daunting because I like to be really heavily involved in like their education, what they're doing, know about their homework, the structure. So when she comes home, they come home and my elder one that's in grade 1 brings me the homework and it's all in Greek. It's thank God for ChatGPT and Google Translate, because this stuff's nuts. It goes over my head. It's not even that it's hard, but it's the grammar and everything that goes, and because it's not the Latin like it is French, Italian, Spanish is a lot different. Right. It's the Greek is really difficult. I almost liken it to like the European Mandarin, if I could, like Chinese. It's that to me is all the letters are nothing to do with English at all. So it's just, you can visually recognize it, but they have those he, she, those different feminine, masculine, all that kind of thing. So they're loving that. So bilingual is amazing. I find here is really an anti-iPad kind of generation. So that again's been amazing. Yeah, here I find
like that.
Greeks aren't heavily into the iPads from what I've seen. Schools and like when I'm out at the park and I see the kids, a little bit on the phone, but it could be also to do with just the cost of everything here. So they don't have the accessibility to technology as much, just due to cost of things. People don't have grand TVs. They don't have 70-inch, massive TVs and iPads. And, to spot the latest iPhone is like diamond in the rough. Most people have Androids. They don't have iPhone store here. They don't even have any. All of Greece, there's no iPhone, so they don't have like an iPhone. It's just an affiliate. They don't have their own Apple stores, which is everywhere in the world you see an Apple store. Here you don't, which people kind of go, where's the Apple store? When they come and say, oh, there's not one. Oh, why? And then that's another rabbit hole I have to explain. But yeah, so that's a big thing. Technology is different. It's very, very pencil paper type and very outdoors. They're always at the beach during the summer. To be fair, I have to admit, though, the long summer is still going to take me a while to wrap my head around. These long summers for the kids is a bit daunting. Having the kids off for so long, I feel I'm still not too sure the benefits of it. I know they say that the heat is a big factor because it's just too hot to have them in the schools, but Greece has one of the longest school holiday periods, and it's brutal, like it's long.
How long is it?
They finish 15th of June and they go back 11th of September.
Okay, so it's really like 3 full months. Yeah, that's a bit,
Yeah.
Here we have about 2 months, 2.5. He gets out end of June and goes back, the 5th, 6th of September, depending on how the days fall.
Yeah, so if I put them into a private school eventually, like high school or even like looking on the track, they're extended because you're paying, so they want to keep the kids in for longer. Public, no, they just keep them. And public here as well, they seem to have a lot of holiday, like, saints days and church days and some, like European, some guy from 1700s, like, so we kind of laugh because they go, oh, this guy, had a really, pivotal role in the Greek Revolution. I'm like, oh, okay, another day off school.
During the gods, right?
Yeah,
it was it was Zeus versus...
It's hard to actually take it seriously. Like they go, oh, it's such a holy day. I'm like, but is it? Because again, I could put a spin on it. Culturally, they like to say it is a really big day, but then the new generation, it's different. It's not actually, it's more just let's have a day off. I mean, that's just the new generation now, right? The Gen Z that are coming in. They don't know anything about these guys. They just, oh, it's a day off today.
It's maintaining tradition, right?
Yeah,
I have the same thing in Spain too, and different counties or provinces, depending on how you want to, communities, if you will, have different things that they focus on as well. And also in Spain, I don't know if it's similar in Greece, there are like floating days. Like they have to give off a certain amount of days to like teachers and students like throughout the school year. So you have like a tentative calendar, and then there's like 3 to 5 floating days that they can add in to the calendar once they see how things unfold. So like if there's really bad weather or like rain here in Spain after the floods, like they just cancel school. So those floating days will go towards that. But like this year we didn't have like the terrible rains, thank God. And now there's like, oh, well, now you're just going to have 2 extra days off here. And I'm like, how do parents deal with that?
So true.
Like, okay.
I mean, we had the supposed flood here. I mean, this is just laughable. There was a flood, like, because here, again, being one of the oldest cities, it can't handle it. The plumbing is shot. You can't put toilet paper down the toilet. It's known in Greece. You can't do anything. So you're looking outside. I mean, they don't have drainage. They have drainage issues so that, so forget when there's floods. But these, I've seen the floods. Okay, yeah, fair call. If there's floods, I get it. But this was a little bit of rain, okay? They called it heavy rain. And they send an email the day before school's canned. I said, oh, here we go, of course. So, you get the email, it's cancelled. I see the rain, and my partner and I are just looking outside, and we're in an episode of like, Faulty Towers. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, I know faulty taps.
But like, is this real life? Like, this is just, I would be dredged in school. I mean, Perth, to be fair, Perth didn't rain, thank God, thank God for that. It was a beautiful city, so it wasn't a huge rainy city. I went to school pretty much rain, hail or shine. But I know my partner growing up in Melbourne, like I said, Melbourne was like the Toronto or the New York. It did rain, and he was forced to school shoes and all, uniform, off he went, there was no like, school's off to. Is it because it's soft? The kids are getting, as it gets on, people aren't tough enough. Is it just, what is it? Is it infrastructure? You wonder, right? Like we were sent to school regardless. So it's just funny how, they consider that.
I like that. That's a good question, because like school was such a novelty for like the public. We don't realize how, that wasn't really mandated, at least in the US, until like the late 1800s, that kids had to go to school to a certain age. Like 100 and some years later, maybe it's just more of a novelty than like something you have to do. It's not as much of a novelty, I should say. It's like, it's not as special. And I don't know if that has to do with it. Or if like here, after we had the Donna floods that, killed 230 people, now anytime it's calling for rain that's supposed to be a certain level, they just, because, the soil here in Spain, for instance, can't handle it. It doesn't absorb the clay. It doesn't absorb the way, like it does in the US in a lot of places. So we don't have that luxury. The streets do flood because the draining system's not there, and the terroir just can't handle it. So you're running that risk. So after people have, maybe there's just been so many instances where bad situations have happened, and they don't want to be responsible for that. I don't have the answer. I'm just offering potential things.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how, like, things have changed, like seatbelts. Like, you have to wear them. Like, when I was born, nobody cared if your baby was buckled into a car seat. Like, you just hope for the best.
Here, they just introduced helmets, like now, like the last 6 months, as mandatory. Otherwise, you get fined on bikes.
Wow.
And people are wearing them. And I shouldn't say this, this is an unpopular view, because everyone says, everyone cares about safety. Unfortunately, no. The only reason they're wearing them is because they don't want to get the fine. I truly believe that. I truly believe they don't really care about wearing the helmets. Like, it's not ingrained in it like it was, in Australia, being such a, very colonized, like that, westernized, rigid. I mean, I liken it to the UK, right? Everything in the UK is CCTV and rules and regulations. Australia is similar. So there it was, you'd never even think of getting on a bike without a helmet, let alone putting your kid on the scooter. Now here, I see them picking up their kids on the bikes, kid on the front, off she goes, and and I just cringe. Actually, I'm pretty liberal in my views. I'm pretty like, okay, but that stuff, to me, having children freaks me out. Like, that's kids, when I go, mate, your kid's on the bike, let's just calm it down. Like, she's on a bike, she's 4 or 5 years old, let's just
put a helmet on her.
So even get her off the bike.
That's what I don't understand. Like, the kids who have their parents on the bike or the scooters here,
the scooter,
and they're just like riding, and I'm like, there's no protection. Okay, the parents, one thing, you're an adult, you're making that choice for yourself. Have at it. You do what you want with your head. Protect your child, because their brain's still growing.
It's interesting.
I don't really have the
cab drivers here don't wear seatbelts. If you ever come, I mean, it's same.
Funny.
Don't wear the seatbelts, cab drivers.
Never
and then a lot of them, if you don't speak to them in Greek. So if I get into the car and I don't say anything, they can kind of I can kind of pass sometimes. But generally, if I speak to them, they'll get the accent. They know I'm like a tourist or a foreigner, so they can shift the conversation, right? Because they're going to be more likely to know that you're like a foreigner. But if they assume you're a Greek and you don't put your seatbelt on, it's all sweet. But if you go to put your seatbelt on, they kind of immediately know you're a foreigner, because people here don't readily go like, I'll put my seatbelt on in the back. So it's kind of funny.
That's so funny. Well, in Spain, like the cabs won't go unless you have a seatbelt on, because if something happens, in Valencia, they won't drive until you're buckled in. Mm-hmm.
That's good. Here they're getting a little bit better, but majority of the time it's just like, whatever. It's still smoke. Like, they were still smoking in the cabs until a couple of years ago. Like, they have stopped that now. because vaping is the new thing now, but they were still having their cigarettes. I mean, they still have their cigarette and their coffee when they're driving the buses here, which I find is hilarious. Some of the buses that go to the villages, not the buses around the local ones, but the ones that take you out to the villages, they've still got his cigarette in one hand, the phone, the coffee, and then the phone. So he's got about 3 things going on. So he's driving the bus, smoking, and he's got the phone and the coffee.
You're just like, oh my God, what is happening? So you're talking a lot about these little like nuances to Greek life. How has this transition been for you to navigate life from, I mean, you've lived in Canada, but there's probably some similar principles to Australia. Yeah. So how has this been for you, this movement, this assimilation?
Different. Well, I actually more liken it to difference to the Middle East, because the Middle East is Australia in that it's like that similar. There are similarities because there's a lot of Europeans and in Australia. So the cultural thing to me, I'm used to it because it's so multicultural. So I'm used to like, late night vendors and your traffic and people screaming and, that stuff does happen in Australia and Canada a lot. I find you still have a lot of similarities to Europe and those places where you have, nail salons and hair places and people are, what I'm saying? It's all very hustle bustle. Whereas the Middle East is completely different. So that is maybe what I compare it to now when I do travel to the Middle East, because it's so calm there. It's such a calm place. It's like, when I say Middle East, I'm not talking about some of these major cities within that's a very broad statement. I'm probably more talking about UAE, Dubai, probably more likely liken it to Abu Dhabi because I was there for some time. So I'm quite familiar and I'm going back there to visit. Actually, I love going there. The calmness of the place is completely different to what I feel here. Greece has a different energy. It's got a nice energy, but it's that old history of energy of like that, you feel rooted in something. It's got like a real sustainable essence here. But when you go to somewhere like the Middle East, when I say it's calm, everything is just so in order. It's very clean. People are super respectful. You feel so safe. You feel like, nothing is too hard basket. Everything here is too hard basket with people. So I liken it to the difference of the transition of when I get back here, even though I love the land and I love like being here and I love doing my business and I love doing all that, every day you wake up with kind of like that feeling of what's going to go wrong today. What could go wrong today, unfortunately. Whereas like Middle East, you just don't feel that. You just wake up and you're like, anything is possible because that your day is set and your day is going to run perfectly. If you know the car's going to come at 2:00 in the Middle East, it's going to come at 2:00. If you know that you request something, it's going to be there. If you know that you order something, it's going to come to you. You're not going to have the mail guy running after you trying to find where you are. Yes, every place you live is hard and, but that's why I suppose that's why my parents were there for 15 years because they had such a like it's this almost like bubble of like luxury where you forget real life problems. And so I really like kind of miss that in that way. Could I live there long term again? I'm not too sure, but that's what the difference of assimilation here is completely different because I know I can wake up there and go, you know what, like my day's going to be great today. Here, couldn't tell you.
It's an adventure. Every day's an adventure.
Yeah, definitely. It's just crazy times, yeah.
I mean, even in the U.S. and anywhere I've lived, which is the U.S. and here, but multiple cities, I'm always like, what's going to get fucked up today?
Yeah.
Because people are involved.
Yeah, exactly.
But I love the way you put that.
It's Athens as well. I mean, I'm looking at Athens. I mean, the islands are a completely different kettle of fish. But being in Athens as such, I mean, yeah, you think what's going to happen today. That's probably, the big difference. Definitely.
But I love when you said the energy of the city. Like, I will say I enjoyed my time in Athens when I was there, but I was happy to get out. Like I came, I saw, I conquered. Yeah. At the beginning, you were talking about the Mediterranean, like energy and the people and how they communicate. And I feel that with my Italian family. I know they're different countries and cultures, but there is a certain essence to people who live in a certain region. And you can't help it with like, it's like, but they're just talking, but it's like loud and aggressive. And it's like, what do you mean you don't understand?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it. Oh man.
Yeah.
So when you were moving over, what was that process like? Did you have any like specific bureaucratic issues? Were your visas easy because you already had like a passport? What was that process for you and your family
so
like?
here you, if you have a passport, you're not automatic. You're a citizen, but you're not automatically a resident. Which I get the theory, but I don't get it. Like in Australia, I was born there, yeah, fair. But if anyone that comes with a passport, you just go in, boop, you're in, and you can just apply to get a lease on a place. Bang, you're done. You have a job, or even if you don't have a job, there's ways there. You're automatically a citizen, right? Here, you come with your passport. They're like, okay, you've got your passport. Now let's make it. You go through 10 million steps to prove that you actually live here. Okay, fine. What are the steps I have to go through? Anywho, how long is a piece of string? So that was difficult. The actual moving over, because we'd come so many times, the physicality of it was easy. The girls were little, so we just got on the plane and came. We had packed our stuff up. We'd sold all our stuff in Australia. We had like 5-6 suitcases. We just shipped them over. We had furniture here. We kind of had it basic set up in an apartment, so it was all fine. We had running water, we had electricity, whatnot, everything was sorted. It was things like, getting the internet, for example. Yeah, it's always going to be anywhere you go is going to be a heartache. You have to, when's the guy going to come? When's, got to get the call out. I think that's just relocation in general. But like I was saying to you, the Greeks, for some reason, have to make it just that one step harder. Like just, for instance, the guy came to install the internet and he took out a massive chunk of the wall to do so, in doing so. And this is a guy that rocked up. I mean, there was no high-vis vest. There was no guy in a polo with the branding of the internet company. There was none of this. It's a guy you would see from the Cafe Neo down the road, just finished his spanakopita and coffee on his motorbike, rocked up, leather jacket. Who is this guy with a toolbox? Who is this guy that's coming to do? They called me.
Yanni.
The internet company called me. Yeah, massive hole. Trying to get that fixed we went through the rigmarole. And the funny thing, I was talking to my partner about the podcast, and we laughed because and again, the Faulty Towers episodes. And he said, tell Brianna about the hole in the wall. And I said, why? And he goes, because it just proves to you that they beat they beat you down. Like they will go through every loophole here to not fix something just so that you're so exhausted and you just go, I'm over it, just leave the wall. That they'd rather go through that process than actually just fix the wall. I don't understand the concept behind it. Like, so did we get this wall fixed? No, it was the size of, like this. My father ended up fixing it when he came to visit. There was, he grouted it and whatever. But it was the principle behind that. The internet company said, oh, we'll send someone. Or, we took photos. But just never did. So again, things like the hot water, if something goes with your hot water, So yeah, that unfortunately is an issue here. That kind of stuff gets you every day. It's like when you go to park your vehicle somewhere, instead of putting a no parking sign, they make you drive into where there's no parking, and some random guy comes out and says, there's no parking. And I said, well, why don't you just put a sign out the front, no parking, it's full. But they don't think like that to do that. They'd rather just hire some guy to tell you there's no parking. There's no implementation of sort of strategizing of any kind of foresight in certain aspects of infrastructures and government, and it's difficult. And then you could look at the political side of a lot of people don't know about all the politics that goes on here with all the riots and all the, things that go on that they have strikes, constant strikes, with the taxi workers, strikes about wages. That's a huge thing. Greece is the second to the last, I don't know if you're aware, the second to the last. When I say second to last, it's the second lowest paid. The bottom, don't quote me, could be maybe Bulgaria, one of those countries, but it's the second last worst paid country in all of Europe, which is unfathomable. Like people that visit me, tourists that visit me say, oh, it must be such a rich culture, history and everything. And I say, yeah, but the wages here are significantly lower to the cost of living. People are really, really struggling. So there is that dark side of it, I see, that you see on the news and things, but you just try and kind of, that's one aspect of your life, and the other aspect of getting on with the day kind of thing as well. So
do you think the pros outweigh the cons of living abroad? Because there is something to be said, again, having this conversation with my dad, no place is ever safe and stable 100%. There's pros and cons to everywhere. I mean, look at the US right now. Oof.
Yep.
So do you think the pros outweigh the cons for the lifestyle you want for your family?
For the lifestyle, yeah, definitely 100%. You can't discount it. However, I would say one thing I'd like to just advise people. I mean, it's personal opinion. It's not verbatim, but for me, if you were going to move somewhere within Europe, or I would say Greece, especially Italy, places like that, because I do know it's similar in Italy, you don't rely that you'll come and kind of rely on the government for work. When I say the government, like getting a public sector job and things here is extremely difficult. It's not, they're nearly non-existent. So if you want to work in any companies that they, decent wages, they're all taken. So what they do is they retain their positions. People never leave. So once you're in that position, they never leave. Like anything that's, government, these Medicare, we call it Medicare, any places like this, people never leave because what they do is they work so many years to get the pension, and they just don't leave the job. And so there's no opening for just a normal 9-to-5 job here. So I would say don't come with the intention of like, okay, I'll just get a 9-to-5 job in retail or something. It's basically non-existent. And if you are going to work in retail and hospitality, they really work you to the bone. On the islands especially, it's 7-day working weeks, and people don't know that for the summer. I mean, a lot of people wonder why when they come and they kind of treat it a little bit different to what they're expecting in other countries. It's like, yes, but you have to understand that there's a level of like human dignity that these people have. Like, so they're working these 7 days getting paid really, really low wages, and there's just a breaking point. So if you're coming with just a minor issue of, oh, my coffee's cold or something, you can understand why there's a little bit of like, look, mate, I'm what, do you know what I mean? So it's a tough one in that regard. Like I see that a lot, and I'm fortunate enough to not have to be deeply within the system, because we decided to come and create our own business. So that again gave us the lifestyle of not having to go through those struggles. But I wouldn't rely on a kind of a 9-to-5 job here, unless you're a digital nomad where you're getting paid outside of Greece and you're coming and enjoying the lifestyle. And again, if you've got a lot of money, and when I say a lot of money, I'm not saying, millions and millions, but if you've got a comfortable income and you come and live here, it's an amazing place to live, because what you can get in US, Australia or Canada compared to what you can get here for the same money is not comparable, I feel. And so that's why a lot of people come to these places, because they know, like, I can't have the lifestyle that I have in my home country compared to here if I'm making all right money. So that would be why they move. And it's a good place for like retirees that come, and they obviously have their super, they have their asset, the 401k, everything's ready to go. So they move here and buy property. And the golden visa here is super popular, the golden visa to purchase investment, because it's like, well, the lifestyle it brings. But yeah, I would say, look, safety wise, unpopular opinion, and Athens is super safe. I don't know why people have this thing that it's not unsafe. I find it super safe, especially the islands are even more so safe. But Athens, I can be out at 2 a.m. and I'm safe. Like, I don't even stress about being out by myself. Could I do that in Melbourne? Probably not. These days, it's hard to say. You can't. Australia's gotten really, really violent from the news and what people tell me. So that's the pro. It's the pros outweigh the cons in the sense of the safety aspect. I feel for my kids, the lifestyle it brings me. Like, traveling is super safe here around on the public systems as well, and just every day in the communities. I don't feel like it visually looks not so great. Sometimes there's a lot of graffiti. Visually it's not as clean and pristine, but then if we want to go dark, is clean and pristine, there's always the dark underneath that, right? The cost
to that, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I feel like our incentive to move here was, what are we selling ourselves? What do we have to sell of ourselves in Melbourne to really get that lifestyle that we would want to achieve? Like, what at what cost? So it would mean working hours of, yes, we'd be working the same hours as they do here, but the thing is, are we getting, we're corporate, right? So we're getting like, we're having to work, we're having to have our kids in daycare for a start, because here we can afford to, when we first moved, we didn't have to have them full-time in daycare, whereas in Australia, we'd have to have them daycare, we would have to be both working 9 to 5, we would have to be paying off mortgage, we would have to be having the 2 cars, all that kind of jazz, whereas here, I don't know, similar in Spain, it's like if you have a car, you're rich already in life. Like if you have a vehicle in Greece, it's like you're considered extremely like lucky, because there's a lot of people that can't even afford to have vehicles, or they just can't because of where they live and they can't park the car. So we have a car and everyone's like, wow, you have a vehicle and you have somewhere to park it. So there's no like your car is 20 years old or your car's, there's none of that. I feel like there's none of that judgment. There's not like keeping up with the Joneses, which is what I like here.
It's nice.
Yeah, which is definitely different to how I felt in more capitalist places for sure. Yeah.
I get that too. Very much so. Yeah. I lived in suburban Florida, and beautiful, in St. Augustine. Lovely, lovely people, lovely. But it's like, you know, it's the pool, it's the house. Like it is a bit of that. Even if you don't play into it, because I never did. Like we were a one-car family. Like my husband, like he was British and he didn't like have his license, you know, so he couldn't. So it was my car, you know, like I drove. So it was like, what's the point of having two cars? Like, there's no point, you know? And we're not getting a pool because there's a community pool. We don't need to have a pool to be cool, you know? Like, I get it, you know? It's just like...
We had three cars at one point because my partner has a vintage car. He still has it. In Australia, it's his baby. He won't let it go. Which is fair call. I mean, every guy has to have the one thing. He loves it. It's a 1971 Ford. So he has that in Australia, still safely stored there. And so that's his. So he had that car at the time. And then I had my car. And then I think we just somehow got another car at the time. You know what I mean? We're like, how do we have three cars? At one point, we did have three cars. It was kind of like, what? So it's very different.
Tell us a little bit about before we go there, are there any misconceptions about living abroad, specifically in Greece or any place you've lived, that you would like to address?
How so? Misconceptions like...
Like, you kind of covered some things about like the bureaucracy, but it's like, I think sometimes there's this ideal that the grass is greener, you know, it's going to be this beautiful thing. And then you get there, like you said, you're working in Abu Dhabi, and there's a dark side to everything being crisp and clean. And then the life of a travel, like a flight attendant, might seem glamorous, but you're alone half the time, or you have a terrible schedule. So is there anything that you didn't really realize that you maybe you were disillusioned by until you got there? If there's anything else we didn't cover?
This could be moving abroad in general, but I've specifically in Greece, everywhere else I've lived, I've always felt very welcomed. I've always felt like it could be because of a language barrier. I definitely recognize that. But then I speak to other people that are foreigners here. Like I'm on a foreign group here, and there's 40,000 people. It's called Expats in Athens. So if anyone wants to see some funny stories, jump on Facebook, look up Expats in Athens. Hopefully it lets you read some stuff if you're not a member. But you go on Expats in Athens. Now there's 40,000 people on there. And it's funny that they all need each other to just guide each other through this, because we all feel like we're not getting what we need from the community here. And that's like, that's something I wasn't expecting. So there's this thing of, you know, Greeks are very welcoming, and, you know, when you come to the islands and they're so like welcome, and we'll show you our way of life. And philotimo in Greek means like, you know, our way of doing something for you selflessly, and we'll, you know, about the passion of why we do things. And their very beliefs are, you know, family orientated, which is it definitely is a thing, right? However, when you see it from an outsider's point of view and you feel like they're very family oriented, you just assume that when you come, they're going to extend that to you. And that's not been the case, unfortunately. I always thought the Southern European thing was very like welcoming and, you know, kind and going out of your way. And so I never felt that in Canada. I never felt that in the Middle East at all. Middle East are just like always very respectful, always very going out of the way to help you. Australia, for sure, I feel Australians are still some of the nicest people. I mean, I watch people that are living in Oz that on Instagram that, you know, moved from the US, and they say Australians are so lovely. And I just thought that was inherently how you are when people come into your country, you know. But time and time again here, unfortunately, I just feel like they're very closed. I don't know what it is. It's like almost this wall that they put up, and that I wasn't expecting. I felt like there was going to be more of a warmth in general to them. And that really shocked us, and it still continues today to shock us, because maybe it's an Athens thing, maybe where it's like it's a big city, so everyone's like in the rat race and not really even able to help their next door neighbour kind of thing. But if you go on this expats page on Facebook, it's just like you know, I understand every place you move, you need a forum of the things that you're shitty about or just struggling with. But I see the constant same topics coming up again and again and again on this forum. So it's not just me. I think, okay, these people are really, and it's the same stuff like, you know, why can't the Greeks do it this way? Or for instance, like trying to find a place here and rent is so difficult. And it's not just because of why the reasons you would think. It's like people are writing these things online going like, why are we getting scammed? Why are the Greeks like, you know, doing everything so wrought? Why is there no taxes? You know, like the old thing of the Greeks are the mattress under the bed. You know that old saying, like Italians and Greeks hide their money under the bed, right? I don't know if you're aware of that old tradition. No, it's like, okay, so it's like a thing like growing up in Australia, it's like it was a funny thing, like pop culture in the 80s, 90s. The Greeks and Italians would hide their money under the mattress to avoid, like, you know, that's the thing, like everything's cash. And so if you go on these like memes and you see these comedians that go like Sebastian Maniscalco, I don't know if you know him, he's an Italian American, quite prevalent, like a comedian, and he's talking about his dad, like growing up in the 70s, 80s, his dad would hide money under the mattress, and you know, like it's a funny afterthought, right? Because it's very much like that thing of, you know, keep it in the family, and we hide our money and we just help each other out. But it's funny until a point when you actually come here and you realize that if those values are still inherent within, if they're still instilled in the culture now, it's good for a laugh. But when you actually have to deal with that, it's like, no, it's not. It actually is prevalent. You know what I mean? So it's like, why is the system not protecting us here? There's no ombudsman. There's no system to, if you try and rent a place here, it's fortunately enough we don't. They just go, oh, well, you're a foreigner, I'll just charge you whatever I want and we'll move on, and there's no laws. So that I wasn't expecting. So the misconception I feel like is that you think everyone's going to do the right thing by you in any country that you go. You're going to have some sort of level of like morality. And I'm finding it more and more difficult here, unfortunately, dealing with like day-to-day stuff. Morality is difficult, very difficult in certain aspects. And that I really wasn't expecting, for sure.
I get that.
Yeah,
you can see like the tourists go home, and it's a lot in Barcelona in particular, and you're starting to see a little bit more here because the population of Valencia has exploded in the last couple of years in particular. Even within like my neighborhood, like I live in an apartment complex of like 5 buildings, and when I first moved in, everybody was a little bit standoffish with me. And it wasn't until they realized that I was like living here and my son goes to school here and that they started to warm to me. And I
agree.
I kind of get it, because so many people are transient and so many people are taking advantage of communities, you or I. But there are people out there who are coming in and buying up properties and really extorting the rents. And I actually interviewed a friend of mine who's from Valencia and says this. It's like, we want the people to come and love our city the way we love it, but with that also comes people who are trying to capitalize on the novelties that we have here, of the uniqueness of and I think sometimes there's a mentality of like, okay, we got to fuck them before they fuck us. And when you're in it every day, you're like, but I'm not trying to do anything. Like, I'm trying to give my son, my family a safe place. I'm trying to, you know, contribute to society. And it's a tricky line to navigate, especially when you're coming from a place of earnest. You know, it's like, just help me here. I'm not trying to take anything from your community. Like, I'm just trying to be part of it. And, you know, can that be?
It's true.
Can we do that?
It's like
Is that right?
They don't, yeah. You're here for the summer and they kind of just whatever. And it's not until it's winter time and they see you trudging your kids to school in the rain. And then it's finally, maybe after a year, I had an acknowledgement from one of the neighbours, like, hello. I'm like, oh, geez, you know, because she kind of started to respect me, like, you're here for the long haul. I'm like, yeah, I'm one of you now, kind of things. So they do take them a long time to trust anybody. And I just don't like the way that they are very closed. And I was not expecting that. I expected Europeans to be a little bit more open, and I just find a lot of them can be very closed.
Yeah, no, I 100% see that. And like my group here is mostly expats from like various countries. You know, like one of my best friends is Colombian, another one's Peruvian. And you're just like, and they're experiencing the same thing. And for different reasons, like, you know, but you're just like, it's interesting that you're trying to assimilate and immerse yourself in a culture, but it doesn't necessarily want you there.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I know.
I'm trying. I'm trying here.
Yeah.
Ayúdame, por favor.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your tourism business. How did that come about?
Sure. So it was really started, my partner started the kind of concept in 2000, I wasn't say 2010, but 2009. So coming up to over 15 years, and pre-Instagram, pre kind of like social media. And it was really kind of, hats off to him. It was a cool idea because at the time he was being Greek himself. He was coming over visiting, but not really being able to experience Greece with people, because obviously people, he would come over and just come for holidays and whatnot. But it was that being able, he as a he owned a gym basically. He's a personal trainer by trade. So he would go back to his clients and come back every holiday, and kind of, he's been doing it for a long time, personal training. And he would say, I just went to Greece this summer, and they'd be like, oh, that's cool. And you know, being so far away and being Australia, it's like, wow, tell us about it. So he would be telling about his holiday, and they would be just so intrigued about how it was here. And so 2009, he kind of thought, well, the concept is a lot of Aussies would go to Bali and they'd do like wellness retreats. They'd go to Sri Lanka, they would go to like Philippines, or, you know, but no one would really think to go to Europe for more of like a wellness kind of trip, right? Because you don't think of Europe and Greece as wellness. You think of it as eating, drinking, party, under the sun, mamma mia, you know, all that sort of stuff, dancing and whatnot. Yeah. So he said to some of his clients, we should go to, you should come to Greece, and I'll show you like authentic Greece and how I live it when I go. So we'll go eat at my mum's house. I'll take you to the villages, but then also because you don't want to miss out on your training, so I'll train you in the mornings. We might do some meditation as well, and we'll do some yoga. And you know, he had a yoga lady that he knew here, and so we'll do that. And he was called the Balance Tour, and so he would do that every year as more like a hobby to bring people over and just like have the camaraderie of Australians with him, and like that similarity banter of the same sort of, because a lot of times you travel with people, as you know, you have to have that same. You have to have it has to mesh, you know, like the types of travelers you want to be around, right? So he would bring them, and they would had a great time. And so he sort of started it into a business, and I joined formatively like around 2015, so about 10 years ago. I said, look, let's get it out there more to the community, not just your clients. So then we started doing expos in Australia, and we did like some wellness expos, and just wanted to share with people our passion for travel. You can do it solo, it's not scary. You can come to Europe, you can come with us, you know, we'll guide you and whatnot. So we took some trips over here, and we thought, well, we might just do it as a side business and still live in Australia, and it's just like a passion. But then 2020, obviously we all know what happened with that, and long story short, you know, his business shut down just due to the sheer fact of the business demographic. It was close contact business, so that shut down. I had children at the time. I'd had my first in 2019 and my second in 2020. So I had 2 back-to-back children. And the one we had planned first in 2019, this is pre-COVID, we thought, well, we'll have a child and we'll sort of see how it goes. But then having a child during COVID in 2020 was super difficult, not having any family with me. No one could come and visit me, you know, giving birth in basically like a side of, you know, I call it the closet, like wheeled into some, you know, I had a really, really rapid, quick, thankfully natural labour. So I went into labour like 22 minutes, active labour. They said on I have the sheet, 22 minutes active labour. I nearly gave birth in the car park. Yeah, in the car park, I nearly broke, my waters broken. We were running. Dang. It was crazy. So I popped her out, and then it was like, all right, now we have 2 children. Like, you know, what are we going to do? And COVID ran for so long in Melbourne. It was 275 days of COVID. So it was just like annihilated us. It was 6 lockdowns. It was 9 months of lockdowns. We were done. We were mentally done. We were like, all right, the kids are, you know, going to start. One's 3 now. So by 2022, the oldest was 3 years old. And we thought, what do we want to do? Do we want to continue down reopening the business? Do we want to just, you know, what do we want to do? We just kind of made a decision. Within 6 months, we want to move. And we moved here. And I didn't even know if we were going to do the travel industry. We were looking at some other avenues for business, and I contacted a women's travel group in 2022 that had over 1 million followers. And I said, look, I've moved back to Greece permanently, and I'm looking to do what I did from Australia on a more of a wider scale. And she brought 2 groups. So I had 2 groups of American women, and I just thought of the concept of just doing women, because I thought, I've been in a similar situation where I've traveled solo and I have a lot of experience traveling, being a flight attendant.
Yeah.
Also, I knew what it was like to travel as a foreigner. So being like an expat now, what I wanted out of travel, so what I could offer people in Greece and what I could actually tell them when I say tell them, what I could share with them without being really making it very commercial. So not putting a trip together that was kind of commercial, like come and do this because this is the Instagram trendy thing to do, or do this because, how about you just come and do what we like to do. So it was cool because we took them to our favorite taverna. We took them to like places in Athens you wouldn't normally go. We showed them like, stuff like that. So I just said to him, let's just do women's only, funnily enough. And it branched from there. So now I'm primarily gravitating people towards me as the women's groups, because I feel like they like to work with a woman, and I'm of an age where it's like I can kind of understand the concept of I'm not too young that I'm sort of flippant with my decision making of where to go, and I really have safety in mind is paramount, like safety when I travel. I'm fun enough that I can take you to do all the fun shit, but then if you want to do like some serious cultural stuff, I still am ready for that. And I have kids as well, which I feel is kind of an advantage, because what it does is it grounds me a little bit more. I'm not so much about just doing this business for like just the money or the accolades or anything. I actually do it because I enjoy it, and I enjoy the time away, and the time away from me is precious. So like the time I'm away from my kids with a group or when my partner's away with a group is really even more enriching, because it's like we're giving everything to the job, because we know, okay, not only is it feeding us, yes, it's our business, but it's also like, you know what I mean? I'm giving all my passion to them, because I know, well, if I'm not present in this moment with you guys here, I'm just going to be back doing the mum stuff. When I go back home, I don't have the luxuries now of just getting on a plane and just jetting off anywhere like a lot of people do. So for me, travel now isn't as much as it was when I didn't have kids, where it was like I went to a destination and just maybe took out my phone and took photos and went, oh, well, next year I've got another trip planned, so whatever. Like it's sort of, I have more of a like when I'm in the moment with the group, or I'm somewhere I'm really in the moment with them, trying to enjoy every possible aspect of that. And so, that's what I try and instill when I do the trips. It's like come and actually experience it for the week that you're here, or how many days, experience the culture, experience like it without all that glossiness as well. I like to do it more authentically.
Was it difficult for you to put that in motion in Greece? Were there any like regulations you had to adhere to, or was it?
Not overly, no, because I'm a citizen and I'm a resident, so I've got all my legal, I've got my Greek ID, I can work, I've got an accountant, I've got all my, I do my taxes, So it's just basically that part of it was actually quite easy, whereas funnily enough, it's like we were saying in Australia, you have to go through so many loopholes to get a business going in Australia. There's a lot of regulations here. It's like, I'm going to start a business, have an idea. So that's been really cool that I've been able to do that quite easily.
How is your Greek? Are you fluent? I know you said you struggle with like your daughter's homework, but like, can you speak it fluently or?
Not fluently, no. It's so difficult, so difficult. So it's a little bit of, because I'm not forced to speak it fluently either, because I deal with basically a lot of expats and like foreigners like traveling. So a lot of my job and things is just purely English. So I get caught up in that. And then during the summer, it's just because I'm not wanting to have to translate back and forth with any like hotel owners or things. If I want to collaborate with someone and I want them to be able to feel comfortable with me speaking in front of people that I'm traveling with, I don't want to be translating, or do you know what I mean, speaking to someone. I just usually just speak it all in English because I'm with an English group. So that I've got to get better at. That I have to get better at. But I'm okay at the moment,
It's hard though. It's like in Spain there's a phrase that says like paso a paso, step by step. And it's like there's only so many things you can do at once, you know? Like you just says let's just do that, then we can do that, and then we add that layer. But so like true. From the American in me is like, no, we have to get everything organized now, But the thing I appreciate about Spanish culture is like, no pasa nada, like it's not a big deal, like you'll get there when you're ready, or like as time progresses, and it's kind of a nice shift of mentality, at least for me anyway. Has having this business in Athens. How has it helped you become more acquainted with the culture itself and the community?
Definitely. Well, I think I'm just because I'm physically on the ground all the time, physically being there. So it's that's funnily enough, if you sort of can do a job remotely and it's completely different to how it would be on the ground. So like you can make as many bookings as you want as a travel agent, or I think the point of difference for us is like a lot of people do remote travel agent, right? So they do global travel agent and they say, I can book everything for you. And there's always a niche for that. And I respect that aspect of it. But I think for Greece travel per se, it's a lot of places here is you physically have to see the place before you book it. You have to see the restaurant there. It's a lot of like, should say catfishing that does go on here. Like, there are properties that come up online and they don't exist. Like, you go there and they say, it's waterfront views. There's ain't no waterfront, so like it's on the ground. So assimilating, yes, because you have to go to these places and you want to talk to the owners of the place, or you want to go and like all the places that I talk to when I come up with experiences for the guest is I generally talk to the person that runs the experience. So like if I'm talking to someone that runs a liqueur tasting experience in Naxos, which is so much fun, I actually went out there and I sat with her under the vineyard and I said, like, what are you going to do with the girls? Can you show me? When I said, what are you going to do? Like I said, can you please tell me show me, don't just tell me, like, let's experience it together. So she showed me her liqueur, she showed me her distillery, what it actually entails, what it means to her, what her heritage is growing up in so many generations of having this vineyard and things. So it's like by me doing this kind of job, I'm actually forcing myself to meet these people on a more of a deeper level rather than just glossiness of like being an expat digital nomad on the computer and then going out for a coffee and being served and being like, how's your day? Oh, that's good, And I'm hearing all the time the real stories from real people like in business, how they struggle here, hotel owners, all their stories about what they go through. People, the drivers, that's been a really experience. If you ever talk to a lot of like drivers of vehicles around what they have to go through, people at cafes that I deal with, restaurants that I do, I'm going to bring a group here. What kind of food should we make? What do you think they'll like? And then they tell me about their daughter or their son or what they're planning for Easter. You know what I mean? So you get that inherently they just want to talk about themselves. If you allow Greeks to talk about themselves, they love it. Honestly, the best advice I can give to a tourist is if you're coming to Greece, you ask them how, they love it because they don't get to travel a lot. A lot of them, they haven't been out of Greece. And so they just love talking. If you say, how was your day? Like, tell me about your, something, they'll just love talking about it. So you warm their hearts by asking them how they are rather than, kind of coming with a demand is like, oh, tell me about this, or they love sharing. That's one good thing about the actual industry. Maybe in their personal life, like the struggles I go through of them being quite closed, is just because I'm within a community where it's a day-to-day. But if you're a visitor as such and you're on an island, they're very wanting to tell you about things and tell you about why things are the way they are. They love to just tell you why things are, and everything's Greek apparently, and like that old saying, it originated from Greece. They truly believe that, like in the movie, did you know that this word comes from this? Yep, you'll hear about it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely allowed me to be more immersed in it for sure.
I do have to say I've traveled a fair deal, probably not as much as you, but one of the places that I still think like I want to go back there, like I can't wait to go back there, is the island of Naxos. Like it's our favorite. I adored it. It was
cool.
And everybody was, I mean, like you're saying, nice and lovely. But there was something about, there was an energy about that place. And just like we went to like an olive oil tasting, and the woman who ran it and her family, like they were just they just thought of everything too. And I travel a lot with my son solo. And I felt so welcomed in that community.
Yeah, they are, definitely. It's a big island. And it's funny, it's the biggest island in the Cyclades, so it's bigger than Santorini, bigger than Mykonos, and it's so close, and bigger than Paros. But Naxos, we travelled there since I met my partner. Like I've been going since 2013, so I've been going over 13 years. Every year I go, and it hasn't changed. The mentality, I mean, it hasn't changed. Yes, things have changed, like new restaurants have come up, but like the actual soul of the place and the food and everything hasn't changed. I do worry though that that it will be commercialized, because what happens is a lot of these places become like trendy, commercial, and the new hotspot to visit. So I'm always wary.
Don't go there,
of,
then.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't go to nachos.
I have a few have a few others up my sleeve that people don't know about that I never actually tell. They say like, where should I go? I say, well, I'm not going to tell you because I like going there, like on my holidays, on my personal holidays,
Just kidding. That's the worst island to visit in Greece.
Yeah.
Go to Santorini, go to Mykonos.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep them all there, or just keep them in the bubble. Yeah.
Is there anything else that we've missed? Is there anything we didn't know we needed to know about Greece or expat life? Have we covered it all?
I think I've given you a mixed bag of emotions, really, isn't it? It's like,
But it is. Yeah. I think that's a very authentic view of being an expat. Like, this is not an easy life. And it's like you're longing for a place that feels like home and like you feel rooted in, but it takes a while to get there, because I've got some personal stuff going on, and I was thinking about going back to the US. And when you were saying about going back to Melbourne, and then you ended up kind of getting back to moving abroad again quicker than you anticipated. It's like, it's not the same when you go home. And because I've lived all over the US, California, Colorado, Florida, Pennsylvania, Maryland, like you get a taste of how everything is. And even though it's the same country, when I've gone back home, I'm not the same person I was when I was there. And it doesn't like fit you either. So it's like you come back to this like sense of where the roots, like where do they need to be planted? And it's a hard one when you're trying to figure out, and maybe this is just me at this particular moment in life, but when you were talking about that earlier, that's what it brings up for me, is like you want that grounding and that security and that effort of feeling like, oh, I'm rooted in something, and you're striving for that every day as an expat. And then you're just like, I just want to be part of the people here. But it's like you're too different for home, but you're not
exactly
quite the right fit for here.
Yeah.
And it's a really nuanced and it's a tricky experience.
And the things I feel when you do visit people don't like as such on a not immediate family and friends, because they know you inherently how you are, so they sort of accept you. But it's anyone else you sort of share things with, there is a little bit of the backup of that, like, well, you left, so, you kind of, that's on you, like you must have left, so don't kind of come back and then have that expectation that will just kind of welcome you in, or also don't have the expectation that will kind of feel the empathy towards your struggles. Like a lot of times you do visit home, as they say, and you say, oh, I've really struggled, and they just say, well, just come back then, why are you putting yourself through? So, well, it's not that easy. I don't have everything set up here that you might have, or I might not have the yearning. So I do find a little bit of that. It's hard to be somewhere else and then really expecting that. I don't really expect that from people to really fully understand how hard it will be, how hard it is to be away and do something different.
It's a double-edged sword. It really is. There's beautiful things about, like my friend here who was born and raised, went to university in Valencia. There's something absolutely stunning about that kind of existence. To have that community grounding and that intimate infrastructure of everything around you, that's such a gorgeous life existence. But there's something equally as beautiful as knowing that you are malleable and you're adaptable and that you can figure it out. Like there's a certain brilliance to having the grit and tenacity I don't expect, like for me personally, I don't expect my friends to understand, especially if they haven't moved or they haven't lived someplace outside their comfort zone. It's a tricky thing. There's no judgment, but it's just, you won't be able to understand that what I'm going through because you've never lived it. It's not your lived experience. Definitely. So it's a really hard thing because you're navigating so much. Much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, I'm the mom who knows nada. My name is Brianna. This is Mary. If you need a trip somewhere, you can look her up. Would you like to say your website, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you find me on most people use Instagram because I find it the most visual medium because I have all my photos up there. I have my contact info. I have my email on there. I have my what to do's, my stories. So the tag is blue_white_dream tours in one word, dream tours together. So blue_white_dream tours. or just maybe Google me or find me Blue White Dream Tours on Facebook as well.
Everything will be tagged as well. I'll make sure everything's been linked, so that's not a problem, but just so that it's for anybody who's tuning in and wants to remember Blue White.
If you just want to message me, need some advice about where to go or whatnot, or you want to meet someone and have someone to take you around Athens, I can always just take you around Athens. I like to just socially just really expand my mind and meet new people, and so I'm always up for that. If someone's visiting, I can always just meet up with you.
I'll talk to you about that off air. Anyway, I'm the mom who is not. This has been a conversation with Mary. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you're learning